listening to the Capital PTBO Sports Show, an MNC podcast production, simulcast on your TV, Peterborough, Lindsay. You can check us out online at the Capital PTBO or come visit us at the Capital PTBO at 370 George Street North. Coming up on the show today, we'll look at the National Hockey League. We'll weigh how big of an impact the loss of Morgan Riley will be. We'll look at the biggest surprises so far at the World Cup. And is it okay for us to dismiss the Minnesota Vikings again? We will talk about that. All of that, plus the Docs Box, and we'll give our thoughts on the nicest uniforms in sports. Let's bring into the conversation my main man, Mark Million, also producer Matty, who's battling a little bit of a headache.
Yeah, I am.
He put in a request. He said as little as possible on the show today.
Oh.
So I thought we could just turn our mics off and let him do a Chappelle.
Do the
15 minutes right off the hop.
58-minute monologue.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
I'll be like, what's his name? The History of New Rock. Alan Cross.
There you go.
That's me.
I think Alan Cross might be a little bit more refined. He's got the dulcet tone, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Like, immediately.
Soothing voice.
Oh, my goodness. Right to bedtime. What's happening, man?
Not much, man. How are you?
Yeah, good. Good. The store is... okay, here's what's coming up this week at the store. Just quick, because it's a big week.
Yeah.
More retro NHL coming, which is rad. Hartford, Minnesota, Quebec, 94 Canucks. Okay.
I saw the Minnesota Wild's throwbacks where they just went with the white and green.
Terrific.
Looked amazing.
Off the rails good.
Yeah.
Everything was North Star, but they put the 3 stars on the pants, which wasn't a thing back in the 90s, and then had the wild head. Terrific. Mitchell & Ness is here. You're going to see it on social media this week, which is huge for us. It's huge. The hats are absolute fire. And we're doing a brother versus brother holiday window display.
Oh.
So we've got them both up now. You're going to be given a website or a link where you can go and vote as to which brother did it better. That's what's happening here, man.
Can you go back to Mitchell & Ness for a second?
100%.
Because I think the average person who maybe comes into the store or just very casually glances at hats might not understand the discrepancy between one brand versus the other.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of brands in the hat game. I think you'll notice just visually Mitchell & Ness because it pops, unlike some of the other ones.
Yeah, so the Mitchell & Ness so there's a couple of brands that are right up there in the, if you're going Nike, Adidas, Reebok type thing. Mitchell & Ness is a big-time player in the hat game. Quality of hat is terrific. They have a tendency to focus a lot on the retro, but the quality of the product is super. Come in and look at, now that we do stitching here in the store, we certainly notice a lot more when you're doing, I'll look at the quality of the design work. It's terrific. They're a leader in the world in the fashion fan side of it, and it's terrific. Beautiful stuff.
Come down here and take a look. It is pretty eye-popping. I saw a few Red Wings things that I like to get probably around the Christmas season.
They are beauties.
Absolutely. This show would not be possible, speaking of beauties, without the commitment of our good friend Brian Goldfinger of Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. Brian dedicates his practice exclusively on behalf of accident victims, disability claimants, and their families. He is a plaintiff personal injury lawyer through and through and does not accept work on behalf of insurance companies. If you get injured, your first call needs to be to Goldfinger Personal Injury Law, 877-730-1777. That number again, 877-730-1777. Also, a special shout out to the fine folks who support us each and every week on Patreon, patreon.com/capitalptbo. Is it time? I feel like it might be time.
It's time. The wheel's been loaded up, ready to go?
Yeah, the wheel
has been loaded.
Win nothing.
Okay. Let's have, we're going to do a quick breakdown. So aside from the two guys at the top, Jim and Dara, in terms of wins, we still have our good friend Shane Sayer, who is without a win. Latour's got a couple. We've cheated, I know. Brad Sinclair gets himself one.
Yeah.
Maurice the Rocket Cormier's got himself one.
Yep.
But Sayer, where does Sayer sit on the board here currently?
He is between Jim Murray, who has the most wins, and Brad Sinclair.
Okay.
On the wheel. So 6 names on the wheel, as you can see on camera. And he's right between them. He's directly opposite of Maurice Cormier.
Let's see if some of that Murray magic can rub off on our man.
We're spinning it. Here we go. Come on, Sayer. We got no favoritism here today.
No.
Ooh, Jim Murray picks up another win.
Jimmy.
Good for Jim. Jim's like, when you want to talk about consistent performers, like he's the guy on the wheel.
Jimmy, that puts him at 5.
Yep.
That's
It's a dynasty when you talk about it.
pretty consistent.
Sayer's becoming like, who's like the oldest franchise to never win anything?
He might be
The Netherlands.
He might be. What was the name of the kid that pitched for the Mets? Anthony Young.
Could be.
Anthony Young lost 28 straight starts.
Is that right?
Yeah, and then when he won his
that.
29th, they actually threw him a parade. Ooh. That's a true story.
That's great.
Yeah, 28 straight starts he lost.
Can I recommend a book? I know at the front.
Yes.
We don't talk about it enough, but it's a cool library, and maybe I'll bring this one in for you. It's aptly named You Stink. That's the name of the book. And it explores the worst Major League Baseball season franchises, all this kind of stuff going back to the 1800s, and teams that, I think it was the Cleveland Spiders of the late 1800s, that they basically just folded the tent on the season and played like 160 like road games. Like they just didn't even, because they weren't drawing anybody, so they're like, wow, we're just going to play
Just go on the road.
Anyways, I forget who does it, but I will bring that in here because it is good, and it explores some of those oddities like you just talked about.
Yeah.
Like the worst players with batting average and pitchers that went the longest without winning. So it is good. The National Hockey League, someone who does not stink, is Morgan Riley. News today, which we're recording this on a Tuesday, that he's been placed on long-term injured reserve by the Maple Leafs because of a knee injury. This sort of crept up in the game against the New York Islanders.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, long-term IR means it's a particular designation, meaning that he has to miss a minimum of 10 games or 24 calendar days. So, I mean, guess based on where we are, that'll take you to the third week of December. You're going to be into the Christmas break the following week. This is a tough one for a defense pair that's already missing Jake Muzzin, who that's February, and even then, who knows for sure. TJ Brody with an oblique injury, which these things have a tendency to linger and hang on. And I think for a defensive pairing that, there's not too many of us that seem to like Justin Holl.
Yeah.
That seem to think that he's a major league defenseman.
At the best of times, there was a depth question, and now that's really been explored.
Yeah. So now you're going to see Rasmus Sandin's on the second line. You get Timothy Liljegren now has been brought up to the third line.
Where are we at with Rasmus Sandin? Because I've heard his name sort of filtering around in the, we should probably unload him.
Yeah.
What's been sort of your casual viewpoint of Rasmus Sandin?
Yeah, I'm never big on, don't ever release a young defenseman. Like a defenseman's going to take 4 or 5 years at the pro. There's very few kids like Makar, very few kids like the Wi-Fi kid in Montreal that can step in and, at 21 years old, play good, if not great defense. That's not possible. So I'm never a big fan, especially the Leafs. The Leafs have a long and sordid past of like ruining young defensemen. Hello, Luke Shen. Crushing guys and having these defensemen move on and play in different markets and be good. I'm not. The only one I would replace is Justin Holl, and I know that you can't.
Yeah, right now you can't.
No, you cannot.
Can you name their defensemen that are in the American Hockey League right now?
Oh.
Philip Kral, Axel Rindell, Willem Villeneuve, and Mikko Kokkonen.
Yeah.
Those are your options. And they're running 4 defensemen on the Marlies.
That's tough. So to answer your question,
maybe not trade him, but has he done what you've expected, or is he taking a little bit longer to develop than what you had hoped?
I think he's taking a little bit longer to develop, yeah, for sure. I think he's also, the consistency issue is, I think that's something that's always going to pop up, in your first couple of years in the league. But
why do you think Toronto has struggled in overtime so far this season?
5 overtime losses?
It should be. Sometimes there's a level of randomness, especially when you get to 3-on-3. I've seen some very good, very talented teams struggle in overtime, and I think Toronto probably fits in that mold. You're watching, and you're throwing out Tavares and Matthews and Marner and Nylander. What have you seen anything particularly glaring, or is it just some bad breaks in games that they could have won anyways?
I think there's an element to that they've had some bad breaks. I also think that Considering the roster that they've got, there should be no reason why, like 3-on-3, they should be lethal. I'm just going to bring it up here. Like and I know that plus minus is not the defensive metric that you want to use, but these guys are all kind of even. It's not like they're playing. It's not like Matthews is terrible defensively. Johnny T's, Marner. Marner's a PK specialist. Like, I don't know. What I do know though is like you can't lose the division in October or November, but these overtime losses have a way of biting you come April, come March when you're those 5 points. Even if you had to turn around 3 of those 5, the extra 3 points can be winning or losing. A playoff spot. I don't like it, but I can't really put my finger on anything. It's hard. Leafs consistently. Goaltending hasn't always been there, right? Murray gets hurt, Samsonov comes in, Samsonov gets hurt, Shalgren comes in. There's a lot of moving parts right now in the old buds.
Matt, do you offhand have the Atlantic Division standings in front of you, or can you bring it up on the Magic Box?
I've got it.
Which team has been more disappointing to this point in the season, the Ottawa Senators or the Buffalo Sabres?
So the Ottawa Senators, 18 games played. Both teams have 18 games played. They're 7-11. Or sorry, the Sabres are 7-11. The Senators are 6-11-1. Goal differentials, -4 for the Sabres, -7 for the Senators. The difference is the Sabres are on an 8-game losing streak as of Tuesday night when we record this.
Which there is a trend with Buffalo going back the last number of years where they start out really, really good, and then the bottom just seems to fall out.
Yeah.
I think I'm more disappointed by the Senators because they've just been consistently bad. Like the Sabres, this is a bad stretch. You can turn around a bad stretch. When you're losing hockey games every night, and it's not a big group, like an 8-game losing streak, that's a whole different kind of bad, I think.
There was a time earlier in the season that I looked at Buffalo, and they put a shellacking on my Red Wings, and they certainly did start off really well, and I looked, and I thought, wow, this could be a team. And it just hasn't seemed to put itself together yet.
Yeah. Ottawa's had, Josh Norris is an unfortunate injury. And they're a young group. DJ Smith is, I think he says all the right things in the press conferences. He doesn't come out. He doesn't badmouth his guy. Giroux has been consistent, but maybe not the leader of men that they quite thought. On the Buffalo side, again, same sort of idea. There's no real identity there, though. In Buffalo, they've got a carousel in net with Comrie and Anderson and Ukalekinen. Tage Thompson's been an animal. Alex Tuck's been an animal, but there's no identity from that Buffalo Sabres team. They're not, and I realize it's different when you're talking about the 13-win straight New Jersey Devils.
Yeah,
they don't really have an identity either, other than they'll work you hard.
Yeah,
so. The bigger letdown personally is Ottawa, because I always expect it from Buffalo.
You can kind of almost expect it for Ottawa at this point, though. Feels like they're always down
I thought
there.
Ottawa was going to be a team, and they still very well might, but judging by what we've seen so far, you mentioned a couple of injuries and maybe some players not quite living up to the billing. But I expected them to be scrappy for the wild card spot.
Yeah.
Maybe not get it, but be in the conversation in the last 2 weeks of the season.
And they had a strong start. Right, so did the Sabres for that matter, actually. But
I'm looking. The last time Ottawa wasn't in the bottom 2 in the division, I'm still going, and this includes that weird Northern Division as well. There we go. It was 2016-17.
Wow.
They've been last or second last every year, and a lot of the time they've been down there with one of Detroit or Buffalo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One team that's not down there right now is the Boston Bruins.
Oh.
We're off to one of the better starts that we've seen. Early to consider, but any possibility at 63 wins?
I know. That's a lot.
It's a lot of wins in a league where randomness can turn against you pretty quickly, and there's guaranteed wins and losses every night.
Which might play in their favor, though.
It could.
There's got to be clouds on the horizon for this Bruins team, though. You can't have non-injuries and have Marchand and Bergeron and Krejci. You can't have consistent play throughout the whole season from 3 guys that are 36 years old. Well, not Bergeron or Marchand, but and in goal, Allmark's been automatic.
Really
Automatic. Jeremy Swayman's not even a topic of conversation in Boston, and he's a distant 2. There's something about, what is it about the Bruins, though? Why? You can't tell me. There's either something about playing in the pride of Boston. There's got to be something about that. There's got to be something about being a Bruin. There's got to be something about the legacy play. The kids that come in, the Charlie Coyles, the McAvoys, the Pasternaks, these kids come in, and you're going to follow. It must be. You're going to follow the Boston way. You're not going to embarrass yourself in front of us. And the kids just, they show up. Hampus Lindholm.
I ask you right now, as we're recording this, the Bruins are 17-2. The Devils are 16-3. Who finishes higher at the end of the year?
Oh, the Devils, the wheels are going to come off. I mean, they're all kids, right?
Think so?
Oh, they're playing with house money now.
I think for sure. I think Boston finds a way to end up with that. Boston,
the goal differentials are crazy. Like, Boston's got a plus 40 goal differential, and nobody in the Atlantic is even above 5.
Admittedly, when I looked at the top 4 teams in the Atlantic Division, I said, which one is going to regress a little bit? And I pointed my finger at Boston. It turns out it's been the Florida Panthers so far. Sure. But boy, oh boy, the Boston are off to a really hot start. We've seen this before. Like San Jose a couple of years, like probably 15 years ago now, where they were like the regular season darlings. Yeah. I think they had a stretch where they were like 21-2 or 21-3. And they didn't end up winning 63 games. That's a lot of games in a league that is parity driven. But that being said, the Bruins, hey, man, give credit where credit's due.
The best 30-game start in NHL history is the Sharks with 25 wins.
Okay.
They had 52 points.
Is that right?
2009.
The 1980 Philadelphia Flyers went undefeated in 35 straight.
To start the season?
They went 28-0-7.
To open a year.
Yeah, and they got beat in the Stanley Cup Finals. That was Pat Quinn.
Well, you can take it up with Guinness World Records.
I will. Their TV show sucks.
You're sure?
How about
Remember
that?
they used to run that on Fox?
No,
The museum's good, though.
The museum's great.
The book's always holographic.
Well,
what season did you say for the Flyers? 1980?
1980.
Yeah, 1979-80. Now, you're sure that was to start the season?
Positive.
Yeah.
It might not be that positive.
Okay. Let's take a look.
Come on. Why do we let the facts get in the way of a good story? Come on, man.
They did end up losing the cup. Bob Nystrom.
Correct.
Overtime winner.
Yes, he did.
Which Flyers fans would tell you I think it was the tying goal of that game was blatantly offside if they had reviews.
Yeah.
I think it was the tying goal.
The Philadelphia Flyers are just like Boston, though, in the same sort of respect. You know, you anticipate the Flyers coming out of the gate and just laying a nice, soft, warm one. And they don't. For whatever reason, they don't.
Torts.
Well, yeah, Torts this year. I guess maybe it's not.
Sorry, did you say 80-81 or 79-80?
79-80.
Okay, I'm a year off then. I was going to say there's no way it's this team.
But
Patrice Bergeron, point number 1,000.
1,000. Okay, Hall of Famer?
Yeah.
Has to be, right? Because it's not the number you're worried about.
No.
It's everything else.
Everything else around that, the success, the two-way. I mean, he enters that conversation of great two-way players ever. I mean, he did that with his 5th Selke trophy.
Right. Made it automatic.
Pretty remarkable. And he's just been so consistent.
He's been at the Olympic level. He's been at the Stanley Cup level. Yeah. He's, individual accolades.
10 ties or losses for that Philadelphia team in the first 30 games. That might be at least losses to open a season.
Say that again?
They had a lot of ties.
Oh.
In the first 30 games.
So I guess maybe they weren't able to compile the points that San Jose was.
Well, and San Jose had, you must win a game, right?
Yep. That's true. And San Jose that year did not make it even to the conference final.
Correct.
Lost to Dallas.
Yeah.
Second round. Okay, so Bergeron, I want to get your thoughts on Cale Makar. Fastest defenseman ever to reach 200 points.
This is quite a list.
Let me repeat that again. Fastest defenseman ever to reach 200 points. So faster than Bobby Orr. Faster than Paul Coffey.
There was lots of guys. There was like 5 or 6 guys ahead of Orr. I think Orr was in game 216. Makar's in 195. Like ahead of a point a game pace for a kid that.
Now the Bobby Orr stands would say, well, yeah, he came in at 18. He didn't really get rolling for at least 2 or 3 years.
Sure.
And then he became the phenom. Yeah. Whereas Makar came in a little bit older, a little bit more mature, ready to contribute right away. Yeah. That being said, the biggest thing when I saw the list was that the previous record was held by Sergei Zubov. I never would have guessed that. You could have given me 500 guesses and I never would have got that.
There's like anybody who's anybody on Paul Coffey. I mean, anybody who's anyone's on that list. What does it mean?
Scored a lot so far.
Yeah.
I think it means Colorado scores a lot.
Yeah.
Because he got 100
Part of a good offensive team.
147 assists. Like,
He's
that's pretty good.
creative. He's a creative player. He's stable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're looking at a guy who's going to win 4 or 5 Norris trophies. I think there's no doubt about it. By the way, one of my favorite, like, if you want to win a bet at a bar, speaking of Zubov, is that you say, okay, you know a lot about hockey. Who led the 93-94 Rangers in scoring? The Stanley Cup champion, President's Trophy winning, Adam Graves, 50-plus, Mercier, Larmer, all these guys. It was Sergei Zubov, 89 points.
Yeah. Wow.
Only 12 goals, too. That's the best part. Just
built it right up.
Wow. Yeah, you would have got me.
Yeah. Just if you want to win a drink at a bar.
Yeah.
You know hockey, 93-94 Rangers, one of the great teams.
Yeah. They'll give you everybody but.
Yes. So there you go. That's our National Hockey League talk for the day. Football. Want to start Grey Cup just for craziness. So I know we don't often talk about the CFL except if our good friend Gabe Robinson's on.
Correct.
The Grey Cup this year, I fully expected Winnipeg to enter the conversation of the great teams ever, winning 3 consecutive. Hadn't been done since Edmonton in the late 70s, early 80s.
Correct.
Warren Moon.
Yes.
I didn't give the Argos that much of a chance at all. Winnipeg had been so good throughout the entire season. And, Toronto, you saw some good performances. You saw some bad performances. But I was expecting Zach Collaros again, another award, honored season.
Yep.
And then it didn't happen. And then there were stretches, if we can just fast forward to the fourth quarter, a lot of feeling each other out early, low scoring first half. Then you get to the second half. And I had no plans to watch the entire game. I was going to peek at it because I always do.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, I'm going to go to bed early because, I'm sort of over it. And then it was like, now you can't really flip it off. Once it got to the fourth quarter, there was so many back and forth moments. There was return kicks and there was interceptions. And then my favorite part, and I don't have a statistic to back me up because I couldn't track it, and I would literally need to go each game box score by box score, which I didn't want to do. I bet if we looked it up in the history of the Super Bowl, which we're at 55, 56,
yeah.
I bet there have been under 5 blocked field goals.
For sure.
I can think of one off the top of my head, Garo Yepremian in the famous
71.
1972.
Yeah.
Because that was Washington's only touchdown, was they blocked a field goal and returned it.
Right.
And then the Dolphins went on for the perfect season.
Right.
That's the only way I can think of off the top of my head. I'm sure it's happened some point down the line. Somebody gets a finger on the ball, whatever. My point is, in the Grey Cup, you get 2 of those in the last 2 minutes of the game.
Right.
It's the most Canadian, crazy CFL. This game's never over. You're never sure how to feel moment.
That's exactly what I felt. Like, this is the most Canadian thing ever. McLeod Bethel Thompson gets hurt, right? Can't throw the ball. Here comes rookie Chad Kelly. And then the kid's got the poise. Like he's
scrambling all over the place.
Scrambling. He's keeping it going. And so, return punt, touchdown, block field goal. 3rd and 13. Collaros has to convert it. Game's over. Face mask penalty. Okay, we get a new set of that. Like, it had everything and came right down to the last minute, as so many times before the Grey Cup has.
The Grey Cup has a fabulous history of coming down to the very end of the game.
Yeah.
In my lifetime, there's been some of the great. Louis Pasaglia field goal in 2000.
Absolutely,
jumps out.
The 13 men on the field in Saskatchewan.
Bingo.
Oh my gosh!
There was an overtime in there with Montreal and Edmonton that played out.
Yeah. Henry the Gizmo Williams off the top of his shoes.
There was one where Hamilton was going to win, but then the return touchdown got called back for a block in the back. And it's just a lot of those kind of moments that you're like, so, I'm not meaning this for heat, but I have, on just purely entertainment value, I have enjoyed the Grey Cup more than the Super Bowl in my existence.
Yeah.
Just pure entertainment value.
For us, it was, for me personally, it was different earlier on because the Super Bowls in the 90s, aside from the first one.
Lopsided. All of them.
All of them. And the NFC just run a train for years on the AFC. Buffalo, obviously, but Dallas is winning. San Francisco is winning. And, these games are out of hand by halftime.
Yeah.
Not very entertaining at all. So Grey Cup still something special, still means something here in Canada. And it was a great game.
It was a great game. And the Argos, historically, they just don't lose in the Grey Cup.
Seven
in a row. Yeah.
Which has never happened in the history of the league.
Last time they lost in the Grey Cup was 1987.
Pinball's got 7 rings as a player, coach, and executive. 7.
Pretty crazy.
If we run down the list, so the first one's 91. Rocket, Ishmael.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You got the Fluties, the two of them, 96, 97.
Yep.
You got the 04 one, which our friend Gabe Robinson was on in Ottawa.
Correct.
First tackle of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got the 100th annual that they ended up winning at the Dome.
Yep.
You had one in 2017, and then you had this one. And I bet if we looked it up, they've been underdogs in more of those games than what you'd think.
I thought Winnipeg would have wiped the floor with these guys.
They stepped up big time, 5.5-point favorites. Is it okay for us now to dismiss the Minnesota Vikings again? Nobody really bought into them being a 7-1 team, an 8-1 team, and then they go on the road and beat Buffalo in a dramatic comeback, crazy regular season game, and then they come out at home against the Cowboys, who are considered to be an NFC contender, and you're thinking, "Oh, this is going to be a great game."
Yeah,
you lose 40-3 at home,
in
your own building,
the biggest road win in Cowboys history, and you deliver that in the division in November. Holy crap! What's happening with the NFL though?
I don't know.
Like,
this
honestly,
is a good question.
It isn't any given Sunday sort of equation because, like you said to yourself, Minnesota goes in, convincing win in Buffalo, and then a convincing loss at home. It's hard to imagine.
It feels more unpredictable this year than it's been, and I can't quite put my finger on why.
No, and I can't. There's no real reason as to why. Minnesota just didn't. I've never believed in them in the same way as I don't believe in the Jets. I don't believe in the Giants. I don't until you actually win one. And Buffalo doesn't have to win one. They've showed it. They were 13 seconds, 12 seconds away from last year.
And they have an MVP caliber player.
Right. Minnesota,
whereas the other ones, not so much.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins. You like that?
Now the Cowboys are interesting.
This is
the year that they make it back to the NFC title game for the first time since we talked about the 95 season. They're in the thick of it, right?
McCarthy just seems to be that guy, though. He's the coach that gets to the goal line and coughs it up. I can't trust that guy. I don't know what it is. And the whole thing about him dressing up as
Vince Lombardi
at Lambeau, that's disrespectful. You're the Dallas Cowboys head coach. You don't go into someone else's. I know that you came from Green Bay. I know that. You're number 2 in the pantheon of Green Bay coaches. Actually, you're number 3. What am I thinking?
Holmgren?
You're way behind Mike Holmgren. Absolutely. So, and you come in dressed as Lombard. This is what I mean. This is the farce that McCarthy and Dallas and the whole thing. Maybe that's why the carousel works. I don't know.
The crazy thing, in my opinion, about that is I don't look at Mike McCarthy as an overly splashy personality type guy.
No.
It seemed a little bit out of sorts.
I know.
It was almost cooked up in a PR scheme or something.
Yeah, by Jerry Jones, I'm sure.
And then they got what was coming to them because they blew the lead.
Yeah.
But
okay.
I thought that was kind of... Is it too boring just to say that I think the Kansas City Chiefs are the best team and they're just a well-oiled machine and Patrick Mahomes is going to win the MVP award? Are we just tired of that?
I think it's an interesting narrative that they lose Tyreek Hill, and Hill is on pace to have the most yardage in his career, and Mahomes is on pace to have the most yardage in his career.
Spreading the ball around now.
Yeah, right. So you forced it. It's still Kelsey-driven offense, for sure. But Mahomes looks like he's playing a kid's game.
Yeah.
Some of the touchdowns that he throws, some of the plays that he makes, that I know that that's a boring narrative. We've all seen it. We've all watched it. But the kid continues to cook every week. I just don't see how anybody can slow them down to the point where it would be obvious. It's going to come down to, like it did last year. It's going to be the last score standing wins.
All right. The National Football League released its Hall of Fame semifinalists. So this isn't even the finals.
Right.
It's the semifinals.
No, they released
NFL
a list of 30,
this.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The NFL does this where they whittle down the list and then they do a couple of separate reveals. They do the semifinal reveal, which just took place. They do a final reveal, which I think is down to like 10.
Yeah.
And then they, however many, 4 or 5. Just casually.
Sure.
Yay or nay? Devin Hester.
Ooh. I think you have to. He revolutionized that.
For what he did for the position, right?
Absolutely.
There was nobody more dangerous than him. Joe Thomas.
He's a Cleveland Hall of Famer. Like, I really like that idea of
6-time first-team All-Pro.
Yeah.
In 11 seasons. What, you never missed a game?
Never missed
from
a
high
game.
School to the pros?
I think you have to.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Darrelle Revis. My opinion of Darrelle Revis is he was pretty amazing, but a short period of time.
Very short period of time. It's hard. I would say no. Revis Island to me is not a thing.
Patrick Willis.
Patrick Willis, like, just the body of work is so small.
Yeah.
7 years.
Yeah.
You know?
That one's tough for me.
Yeah.
Steve Smith.
Absolutely. I think Steve Smith is a lunchbox type of receiver. Very small, but very, very difficult as a wide receiver.
James Harrison.
Yeah, absolutely. James Harrison. I think
crazy.
I think for the longevity of it too.
Through to 2017.
And he was still angry in 2017. Like, he was still played the position mad at 35.
I would go, if we had to pick one, I'd go DeMarcus Ware just ahead of James Harrison. I did think DeMarcus Ware was a force.
Absolutely.
He was outstanding, 100-plus sacks.
Yeah.
Dwight Freeney.
So Freeney's a weird one for me. He played on 6 teams.
Yep.
He's got a pretty big body of work. He played with the Colts at the right era with Harrison and James and Manning, but he's an on the fence, or like the difference between a guy like DeMarcus Ware or even Harrison, I know who played middle linebacker, but you would have to game plan to play against these sort of defensive ends. And I'm sure Freeney was part of that. He must have been close to 100 sacks.
Yep. 3-time first-team All-Pro, 100 sacks, 16 sacks, led the league in 2004.
Yeah.
I'm probably just going to edge out Dwight Freeney.
Yeah, I think so too.
Be careful how you answer this one. Torrey Big Game Holt.
Oof. Wasn't the biggest weapon, but probably the most consistent for that Rams team.
Only man ever, 7 straight 1,300-yard seasons.
Yeah, which I think that should be enough. They weren't all with Kurt.
Nope. Bulger.
Right. So you had Sam Bulger or Mark Bulger. I think he's automatic. I think he's a has to.
He's waited a long time.
Yes,
and I think this is the year. If you put Bruce in, which they did already,
right?
Torrey Holt on every metric is better than Isaac Bruce.
Correct.
Last but not least here, Jared Allen.
I know Jared Allen,
a bit of a force.
Yeah, he was. This is a guy that I think maybe his game away from football may have irritated a few folks, but there was no doubt. This guy on that side of the ball, like on the worker side, I think Jared Allen. I think you have to, longevity wise, never embarrass himself.
No.
I like Jared Allen to get in.
Just for those scoring at home, Andre Johnson, he was very good. Zach Thomas, linebacker. Reggie Wayne, Darren Woodson, Willie Anderson, Vince Wilfork, Jahari Evans, Robert Mathis. Now we're getting into the not so much. Rodney Harrison, Eric Allen, Albert Lewis, Henry Ellard, Rondé Barber, who I thought was pretty good, but again, not really the credentials.
Yeah.
Anquan Bolden, Hall of Very Good.
Yeah.
Fred Taylor, Hall of Very Good. Hines Ward.
Yeah.
Hall of Very Good. And Ricky Waters. I liked Ricky Waters.
I liked Ricky Waters, but you know what? You know who I did like in that list, and only because his backstory was so good, was Zach Thomas.
Yeah.
Small guy, walked on, undrafted. The kid was always too small to play linebacker, and he was one of the most feared dudes for many years in Miami.
This is not a Hall of Famer, but I always really like London Fletcher.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So he's also on the list.
Nice player.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame thoughts. I'm sure we'll talk about that again. World Cup, switch from one football to another.
Mm-hmm.
Saudi Arabia taking down Argentina.
Saudi Arabia taking down Argentina. They were plus 700 to win the division to start. They were in some bets today on Tuesday, 100-1
It's crazy.
to beat Argentina.
That's a crazy upset.
Where are they in the world, Matt? Do you know?
They're lower than Qatar. I know that.
51st.
Yeah, I think
A
Qatar's
51 beat a 3. Argentina's 3.
Oh.
The crazy thing is, I watched the game. Argentina was offside 7 times in the first half. They scored 3 goals disallowed. The offside in football is very, very strange. You have to be lined up with the last defender. Once the ball leaves the foot, you can move past. The guy's arm was past the defender, but his feet were on the right side. One that he had leaned over, started the lean too early.
Little too much sense of urgency.
Oh,
Get ahead
my
of yourself.
God. They scored 4 times in the first half, and 3 of them were disallowed. Unbelievable. 36-match streak. This is it for Messi. And now for Argentina to get out of the division, you got to win the next 2. You have to.
Which I think is possible, but still very stunning.
Stunning.
Crazy.
For Saudis, that's their World Cup. That's it for them.
With Poland and Mexico in that group tying as well, or drawing, I should say.
Yeah, do you think
it's just weird to see Saudi on top of the group and Argentina at the bottom?
There were some people saying Qatar, who opened the tournament, was the worst team that has ever been put on the field for a World Cup.
Yeah,
And
right.
they did not look, it was like amateur hour with the passing. I'm no expert, but
Sure.
you can definitely look and say, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't think
That
so.
was, not a good performance. Although Iran looked pretty bad against England.
Iran, there's a heavy political side to that, right? They didn't sing the anthem.
Yeah, they're ranked number 20.
Yeah, they should.
Is that right?
Yeah, they should have been. I mean, England fired 6 past them. That was a problem. But, there is some political strife there, political turn. What a surprise.
Yeah.
At every World Cup, there's something. But Saudi Arabia, their
you
tournament's
noticed, Have you noticed the stoppage time that is being added at the end of these halves?
Yep.
Yeah.
I love it.
Now, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong here, because you're the resident football expert, but FIFA has put out an edict that they want to be much more exact with the amount of stoppage time. So for injuries, for instance, there is an official who's actually clocking the amount of time. Because up until this point, it's very casual. It's referee's discretion.
It's been like an eyeballing and yeah.
I've been calling for, and I'm right? I'm on the right track with that?
Yep.
Okay. I've been calling for this for years, where I thought, we have the technology. When the ball goes out of bounds,
right.
you start your watch.
Yeah.
At the end of the half, you'd notice, okay, I've got 6 minutes and 32 seconds, and now we're going to... Because in soccer, there's so much dead time, and there's late substitutions, and this guy's walking off, and of course, the faking of the injuries.
Yeah.
I feel like now you're starting to get 11 and 12 minutes of stoppage time.
Yeah.
So I was reading on this morning in the Premier League, which is England's top league. I don't remember where I read it. My sources just trust me. Last year, it was something like 55 minutes of gameplay for a Premier League game.
I saw something very similar where, it was, I'm not sure if the one I saw was 55, but there was no game more than 76 minutes of actual play.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you've got 15 minutes of just waste.
And you get teams, I don't know if you guys watch much of the U.S. versus Wales.
Yep.
U.S. was going down a lot in the last 15 minutes there. You could tell they were trying to run the clock out, and then, you end up with all the extra time and you get scored on anyways.
Yeah.
But seeing the U.S. get scored on like that, it felt good.
To me, it was a no-brainer this entire time, and I'm happy that they did it. And you talked about the VAR with the replays and the guy's one finger is over the line. You're going to get that exact, but you're going to have the referee's eyeball stoppage time.
9 minutes.
And VAR, that's something that's always a big point of contention.
Sure.
We're talking to.
It's like NHL offsides, right? With some of it.
It's a hyper version of that.
Everyone wants computer refs until the computer refs start taking away your goals.
Yeah.
Wait till the robot umpires are starting to call more strikes on the Jays.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It's going to get ugly. Everyone wants it until you have it. And
Or
then it happens
less.
to you.
They'll call less strikes on the Yankees.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. I saw this article about the best uniforms in sports. When I throw that at you, what immediately jumps out? Mark, you're kind of in the fashion game a little bit when it comes to this. But what sort of jumps out at the top of your list when you think of, whether it could be for any reason, it could be classic looks, it could be good logos that distinct well on uniforms.
Yeah, like I think from the classic standpoint, like the pinstripe Yankees, it's classic. It's
Almost
clean.
universally ranked as number one.
Right. There have been some teams whose logos and color schemes have trended better as they aged. We referenced at the top of the show with the Minnesota North Stars.
Right. Like in the moment, you weren't like, oh, but then now that it's gone, you're like, oh, that was very sharp.
Yeah. I would think like on the NFL side, it's a little bit different. Like it's more logo based than it is.
The Raiders get a lot of love on these lists.
Yeah. So the Raiders for a lot more social reasons.
NWA.
NWA, the black and silver, the whole 90s movement.
So I
You
think
want to call it that?
I'm biased, but my favorite jersey of all time is the Habs because it hasn't really changed in 10 years.
Yeah.
The Habs to me is one that, meh.
You can't change it to me. Like I think I look at that
Doesn't
jersey.
get you
and
excited.
You didn't get the baby blues? You didn't like those?
I don't mind them.
Yeah, they're not bad.
But it's just to me, it's like when I think of the Habs at home, they're wearing red.
Yeah.
For a jersey that like I'm completely unbiased with, I like the Chargers. They got the lightning bolts on them.
The
like
powder
on the shoulders.
blues?
Yeah. You got the lightning bolts on the
Eric
shoulders.
Coryell powder blues.
I did like the Denver Broncos Orange Crush.
Yep.
I did like that with the big D and the Bronco. I liked that.
They won the first year they went away from those.
Correct. They did.
On this list, just tell me if there's any like huge roadblocks. Yankees, Oakland Raiders, or now Vegas Raiders.
Yeah.
Boston Celtics.
Ooh, it's classic.
It is very classic.
Hasn't changed really ever.
No.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
I'll say yes because I like the Pittsburgh. All Pittsburgh's teams are very uniform.
There is something to about the black and yellow gold. I think it's something like visually is the most appealing to the eye of any color combination.
When the Penguins are on suit, the Pirates are on suit.
Yeah.
Powder blue Chargers. You brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
Boston Red Sox.
Okay.
Classic.
Yeah.
I have college, Alabama. Crimson Tide.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Those are hot.
Yeah, they are.
I know it's not trendy anymore to suggest this, but I always thought the Chicago Blackhawks red jerseys.
Absolutely. Terrific.
Fire. Or the Lakefield Chiefs.
Lakefield Chiefs.
Yeah.
Sure. For the
Rock
local
that
element.
one.
The turn back the clock from the 90s, the early 90s when they did the 75th anniversary, turn back the clock Hawks are beautiful.
What about the, I'm also on a list, I don't know if it's the same one, UCLA Bruins, the basketball jerseys.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's a nice colorway, that baby blue and yellow. I like it.
I got Green Bay on here. Packers.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I
Just
did get
so
the,
boring with the G.
What about the black Atlanta Falcons with the orange helmets? Like Deion Sanders, Jerry Glanville era.
Yeah.
The one that I haven't seen on this list that I love is the St. Louis Cardinals.
Oh, yeah.
With the two birds on the bat.
Yeah.
I love that.
From the 40s.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Definitely. Best uniforms. Docs Box. It's time to do this. The Docs Box is a segment we do where we make a recommendation of a sports documentary that you should go out there and watch.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why we do this is because they've just started putting all the 30 for 30s on Disney Plus here in Canada. So you have access to a little bit more. Mark, have you seen the movie Year of the Scab?
No. But I'm familiar with the story.
Matt, have you seen Year of the Scab?
Take a guess. I'm not Googling it as we speak.
So you're
No.
saying yes. Okay.
So, Mark, before I read the in-depth
Yes.
analysis of this, what would Year of the Scab be in your mind?
So the 1987 National Football League strike with the replacement players.
Yes. So, Matt, in case you didn't know this, there was a strike in 1987. They had striked in 1981,
Correct.
and they lost half a season.
Yes.
So the owners said, we're not doing that again.
Yeah.
So rather than appreciate this strike, and I thought it was topical with all the QP stuff,
Yeah.
they said, we're going to go out and find replacement players. So there are 3 or 4 weeks in that season in which it's not regulars, it's scabs
Yeah.
who are playing.
Average Joes.
Average Joes.
Pretty well. Division I guys who didn't get drafted.
Yeah, so let me read this for you. 2 weeks into the 1987 season, the NFL players went on strike. For the first time in the history of professional sports in the United States, replacement players would take to the field. No names, has-beens, never would-bes were plucked from obscurity for one last chance at football immortality. What they didn't know was that their golden ticket would become a scarlet letter. Crossing the picket line to play in the NFL changed their lives, but not in the way they'd expected or hoped. The moment they crossed the picket line, they were no longer athletes, they were scabs, and they were worse than replaceable. They were disposable. So it focuses on Washington,
Right.
who were the one team that went out together and came back together. The other teams, Mark, star players, Randy White was one of the first big ones with
Yes,
Dallas.
he was.
But you'd see each team have 5 or 6 guys come back because they didn't want to lose it. Joe Montana gave up early.
Yeah.
Some of the big stars. So once that started happening, the Union didn't really have
Had
much
no
leverage
bargaining,
left.
yeah.
But what ended up happening was that this particular team stayed together. They ended up winning a huge Monday Night Football game, helped Washington ultimately win the division.
Yeah.
And then Washington went on to win the Super Bowl that year.
Correct.
And one of the things that they talk about in the movie is that these players who admittedly, when they interviewed a lot of the Washington players who were mad at the time, but now have since given credit to these scab players for allowing them to win the division, get home field, et cetera, but they didn't actually receive any sort of recognition and no Super Bowl rings, and it's like they didn't exist.
Yeah. They
So
would
it's
not
an
have,
interesting look at it.
would not have had their name if they were engraving. They would not have had their name engraved on it.
Yeah.
It sort of reminds me of the NBA the first year they came back after COVID, where you had guys on 10-day contracts on every team.
Yeah.
Like guys from like the Canadian Basketball League up here were playing in the NBA. It was crazy.
Remember when they did the replacement refs in the NFL?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Remember
How big
that?
of a crazy one that was?
And it got down to the Monday nighter, and the guy calls a touchdown that's not a touchdown, but he's looking at the other ref.
And they're both doing the opposite motion.
Yeah, oh my
Seahawks
God.
and Packers.
Seahawks and Packers.
Anyways, Matt, if you want to learn about 1987 season and the whole scab strike, and there's never been a labor issue since in the National
Not in the National
League,
Football
right?
League, nope.
Because they said, I don't know if that had anything to do with it with the scab players, but it's awful.
You won't have a referee one again either after that Monday night finish. I can guarantee it. Too much money involved now
Yeah,
at the National Football League level.
hard to imagine that anyone would ever. It would be like
I'm
worse
just
than
imagining like
watching the
Anthony
XFL.
Calvillo going to the NFL for 2 weeks now.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like CFL players.
Yeah,
or anything.
no,
it was
right.
literally like people who played in college 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah, they're not the only league that did that. I remember Major League Baseball at the minor league level, they had scab employees come in.
Is that right? See, I didn't even know that.
And it was very, very short-lived. It might have only even been for spring training. But similar sort of idea. Like, you can't get behind these guys. You don't even know who they are. Like the Yankees, they don't put the names on the back of the kid's sweaters, so you don't even know who he is. You just know he's not a major leaguer.
All right, gentlemen, Mano y Mano challenge. And then we have an outstanding story that you wanted to get to, Mark.
Yes.
And this had to do with
Johnny Monroe.
John Monroe. So we're going to get to that in a second. The Mano y Mano challenge. We're going away from National Hockey League awards and instead focusing on high-scoring seasons.
Yes.
I want any player that's had 125 or more points in a season. It has been accomplished 66 different times.
66 by
Obviously
like
not-
35 players.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's even 35 players might be high.
I think you'd probably be right with 35 players being high. That is a category on the Mano y Mano
You
challenge.
want first or you want me to go first?
I'll go first. Wayne Gretzky.
Gee. Going out on a limb for that one. Yes.
Correct.
Wayne Gretzky.
Mario Lemieux.
Knocking off the two big boys right away. Absolutely.
Phil Esposito.
First one to do it. Yes.
Jaromir Jagr.
Yes.
This guy finished 1 point short. I'm going to save him for Bernie Nichols.
The most obscure of the 150-point men. But that's what
Correct.
happens when you play with Wayne Gretzky.
Yes.
We're in trouble.
Uh-oh.
Swimming in deep waters, big fella.
Ready?
Yeah. Joe Thornton?
Yeah, 125 on the nose.
Oh, wow.
Right out
Give
of
me
the
that.
lockouts.
Connor McDavid. He's on the fence. He's the guy on the fence for me.
Maybe this year.
McDavid.
Wow. I mean, he did have that shortened season. where he was-
123 last year.
123.
Damn.
Connor McDavid.
Brett Hull.
Yes.
Yes, he did. Shooting and smiling.
131 as a member of Hull and Oates.
Yeah. Pat LaFontaine.
Yes. Great one. He had 148.
148 the year Lemieux had non-Hodgkins.
Yes.
I'm doing the same thing you did last week where I'm thinking of goal scorers, but those aren't really guys that do it.
No, it's hard.
Guy Lafleur?
Yeah.
The
You know, the Flower had it. Did it a couple times. Had a 130 banger in there. 136 for Guy.
Yari Curry.
Of course. Yari Curry. Now we're getting to the...
These are obscure now.
nitty-
Now you're
gritty
starting
now.
to get
Yeah.
Does Latour have a... Does he have
No.
a scratch yet?
Not
Oh,
yet.
no.
But I'm struggling now. Like, this is where I'm running into a wall. Timu Solani,
Yes.
Yes, he did.
The famous
the rookie.
76 goal rookie year. 132 that year.
I was not confident in that one.
Yeah. It's hard because some of the 70 guys
Well,
didn't do it.
I'm thinking 76 goals. How much are you passing?
Sure. Marcel Dion.
Yes.
That's a good one.
Good pick. Had a 135. And a 137. He was all over the place.
I don't think any other Habs have done it in my head. Like, I'm thinking, and I can't. Like, none are jumping out to me right now. Did you said Yari Curry? I'll say Pavel Bure. Yeah.
Bure didn't score enough. Or didn't pass enough.
110 was the high for Pavel Bure.
Yarmir Yager?
I already
Matt, you
said
already
it, pal.
said it.
Oh, you already said? Okay, well, no, I don't get...
No.
Get out of here.
We're not doing this again.
What do you mean? Yeah, we are doing it.
All right, fine.
That was
Okay.
a strike like a month ago when you did it.
Yeah, I know, and it didn't count then either.
But I won that one. Oh, I'm contesting.
Stevie Yzerman.
Yeah.
Come on.
Highest point total by anyone not named Gretzky or Lemieux, 155.
I'm salty now.
What do you mean? It's still 2-1. I'll take my X. Go ahead. Get an X.
I really don't know, like off the top of my head now.
I'm going to buzz you.
Ray Bork. Yeah.
You like going to the Bork well.
I
You
like
did
the
last
Bork
week.
one.
Okay. I need one to stay afloat, and I got nobody left on my list.
125-point National Hockey League seasons is the category.
We've rattled off, what, 20?
Both men currently have 2 strikes.
2 strikes.
You sound like you're calling a golf match.
Got to keep it interesting for
Live from the 12th hole.
This is got to be a time limit.
Okay,
Come
give
on.
easy, big fella. What are you over there about on to me about Kevin Stevens? Oh, are you kidding me?
123.
Yeah, these guys. I've got another guy, 124 too, and I can't use him.
So is that 3?
That's 3. You got to
Now, here's
get
the
one.
thing is I don't know one.
We're in extra time now.
Hold on.
Stalemate right
This is
here.
extra time.
This guy's a goal scorer. Mike Bossy?
No, he didn't score. He didn't pass enough. There's no way.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Come
you're
on.
kidding me.
He had, not only did he, 147 in 81, 82.
Come on.
Oh, my
There
God.
you go.
That's a gutty win.
Gentlemen, notables.
Bobby Orr, 124.
Bobby Orr.
I almost said Bobby Orr, yeah.
Bobby Orr, 139 in 70-71, so he far exceeded
crap.
that. Adam Oates, I sort of let one slip.
Oh, yeah, Oates.
Peter Stastny, anybody?
I would have
139.
never guessed Peter Stastny.
Brian Trottier. Pierre Turgeon. Kent Nielsen. Denny Savard.
Wow.
Dale Howardchuk. Mark Messier. Hello. Never heard
Yeah,
of him.
that's a tough one.
Nikita Kucherov, 128 a few years ago.
Yeah.
I think that covers Luke Robitaille, 125.
Oh, lucky Luke.
I think that's it. Oh, Dennis Marouk.
Oh, yeah, 60 goals.
Holy. Paul Coffey, too. We didn't get there.
Did Bobby Orr not do it?
Yeah, he did.
Totally did.
Oh, yeah.
139.
Yeah, I'm reading.
And Coffey, 138 85, 86. All right.
Okay.
Joe,
John. Okay. How about this? So we have this guy come into the store on Saturday. Justin's doing the window display. I'm with another customer. This guy's kind of milling around, and my brother asks him, what brings you in the store today? I'm here to pick up some Lakers gear. We sell Peterborough Lakers gear here. Picks up a T-shirt and a hat. Justin and him are talking, and he happens to mention, you used to play for the Lakers. So my ears go up. The gentleman I was helping leaves. And I said to John, at the time I didn't know who, I said, you played for the Lakers. When did you play? 1982 and 1984 Man Cup. And I said, like, that 84 Man Cup team is a bit like they were a wagon. Like maybe the best team ever assembled. So I asked him his name. He says, John Monroe. We keep talking. He lives in Kentucky now, and he happens to be here because he drove his mom back to Canada. He said, I haven't been to a Lakers game in years, but the last time I was at a Lakers game, I seen a guy wearing my sweater. Then he said, Peterborough Quakers. Because there was a 4 or 5 year span where Peterborough Lakers were sponsored by Quaker Oats.
Right.
So he says, I can see the guy's got the A on the sweater, and it's white and blue. And as he passes him, he turns, and he's got John's number on the back. So John stops him. Where'd you get the shirt? I got it from a guy named Clark Scoley. Clark Scoley used to be the president of the Lakers during the 1980s. Terrific. So while John's telling me the story, I know that I've got a Peterborough Quakers jersey here in the store with an A.
It was on display for a while.
It was on display. So I said to John, what number did you wear? 21. I go over to the locker, unlock it, number 21.
No way.
John Monroe's jersey, and Pete Dalladay brought that in months ago.
It had blood on it, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. So it's got blood. It's like a game worn, so we get a picture with John Monroe. The kicker of the story, and I mean, that's ironic enough as it is. What are the chances? An hour later, a guy comes in, he's admiring the Peterborough wall. And I said to him, you have something at home that you want to add to it? Yeah, I do. My dad used to be president of the Lakers in the 1980s. I said, who's Clark Scoley to you? He said, that's my dad.
No way. What are the odds
What
on
are
that?
the odds?
I love this city.
Scott Scoley walks in. He's talking about... So just to recap, a guy who lives in Kentucky, 2-time Man Cup champion, didn't know where his sweater was donated by a guy 6 months ago, and he happened to be in the building here. And then the guy who gave the sweater to his son walks in.
That's crazy.
That's Peterborough right there.
Yeah. That's why you need to get down here to the Capital PTBO at 370 George Street North. Gentlemen, this was fun. You've been listening to the Capital PTBO Sports Show, an MNC podcast production and simulcast on your TV, Peterborough Lindsay. Have yourself a fantastic evening, and yes, we will talk again next week.